Welcome to the PROcast, where we invite business doers who are changing lives by sharing their stories, their strategies and tactics, and who bravely talk about their failures that actually led to their biggest successes. Now it's time to go pro with Jeremy Torisk. My guest today started his entrepreneurial journey after graduating from the University of Nevada, Reno, with a degree in biochemistry. But he decided instead to forego his medical pathway to pursue a brick-and-mortar wellness facility. He then pivoted to an online health practice just a year before the COVID lockdowns. What a lucky move that was. Maybe very foresightful. After scaling both businesses to the seven-figure level and doing 3,000 to 4,000 sales consultants, he was frustrated, however, with the way sales were taught. He was tired of the old school objection handling, aggressive sales tactics, and salesy attitudes taught by most sales trainers. So he looked back at what he was doing, combined with his notes, and created Compassion Conversations, a therapeutic-driven, psychological-based sales system centered around compassion and care. Today, he's now taught over 3,000 people his system of Compassion Conversations and has the goal to change and redefine the landscape of sales altogether. Please give a huge PROcast welcome to Chandler Walker. My brother.
Happy to be here. Hopefully everybody's excited for what we're about to talk about and excited to learn some sales knowledge bombs and get away from the manipulative stuff that people like throw out in the industry and that I thought made me throw open my mouth a little.
It's funny. I only have one canned question for everyone, and pretty much you just did it. Tell me something good, my friend. That was awesome.
Boom, winning.
Yeah, winning, exactly. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Well, I appreciate you being here, man. So, let's start with the start. You went to college at a pretty cool place and learned, was it a passion? Was it a calling? Did you know you wanted to be in the medical field since a very young age? How'd you get turned on to that?
Yeah, so basically growing up, my mother suffered from bipolar disorder. And so we had a lot of ups and a lot of downs. And I had to learn early how to communicate with another human being in a neutral way to walk them off the cliff or to walk them up the stairs. Because if you've ever...
Hold on, that was harsh. That was big. My mother had bipolar. I'm always so up and down myself. I worry about myself up the stairs or off the cliff. That was hot. That's really insightful. That really says a lot. It says it in a great way. Sorry to interrupt, but that one was worth the lightning strike. You only get one of those, by the way. You already used yourself.
Boom, already did it. Another winner.
Another winner. So, Dad, how young were you when you had to do that?
I was super young. It was like middle school, elementary when I was really able to recognize that something was different. And I think a lot of kids hold resentment towards their parents because of that. And for me, for whatever reason, I sort of learned to be neutral with her, how to communicate and not hate her for where she was suffering, but to love her for who she was, because she never had anything that was targeted or directed towards me, but she did have these situations and moments like people do in that situation to where it's highs and lows.
Yeah. And manic ups can be crazy though.
Exactly. They are off the cliff ups. And so I had to learn how to communicate in that way. And the other problem was back then, when you talked about that kind of stuff, people said, just shut up and smile and think happy thoughts. And there was no way to fix it. You just had this broken person who had no way to get fixed and thought there was something wrong with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that kind of gave you the idea when you got a little older then, is that you like to help other people that way, or where'd that lead?
Yeah, so what that led to was kind of discovering that there's a way for people to get help and for people to heal, but there has to be the capabilities to actually make it happen. And at that time, what I thought, okay, if I go to medical school, I can put myself in a position to where I can create the healing aspect and help solve these kinds of problems and be the steward to change.
Wow, that's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet of you. It's pretty altruistic, because I had the exact opposite effect. I needed to get away as far away as I could. I chose homelessness at 17, but my situation might have been different. Mine didn't try to get any help. My dad was an alcoholic too. My mom was not only bipolar, but a drug addict. So it was, you've ever watched Shameless and Full House. We were at an 8 on a scale of Shameless to Full House. We were way over here near Shameless. So kudos to you, because that is, that's pretty, that's just, I can't even really connect with that really. So thank God there are both kinds of people in the world.
Exactly. I always got the here and there. But the problem was that I got into the medical school pathway, but I was precepting down at University of Medical Center in Las Vegas. And the big problem that started to present itself was people didn't want help. And doctors couldn't provide the help that they wanted to give. People wanted a pill. Doctors either needed to give the pill or get sued for telling someone to eat an apple. There's no fixing the system. It's broken. And I noticed this early, and it crushed me.
Wow. And so what did you do about that then?
So at the time, I also had the benefit of a father who was an entrepreneur. So he owned a siding and windows and roofing company. Since I was a little kid, he would take me to job sites. And I was like 6 years old watching my dad pitch people on the couch to customers. It was a good experience. And the only reason I ever went with him was because he bought me a donut and orange juice. It was legit, like 6 a.m. for a donut and orange juice.
That's worth it all day long.
100% every time. And so that kind of gave me the idea and the impression that I could probably open my own thing and have this entrepreneurial journey. I asked my dad earlier about it. He was like, "Nah, don't do it. It's a lot of work. Just go to work for the post office, retire, and then do something else and be a double dipper." And I was like, "Well, thanks, Dad." And obviously I didn't listen to him. So I broke off because I couldn't be in the medical pathway. And it's not a shot at doctors. It's a shot at the system, because the system's broken. And so I pivot shifted, and we opened up our physical location. Originally, we called Stone Age Fuel, where we helped people in 6 areas of wellness: mental health, social health, sleep, nutrition, fitness, and habits.
Wow. So say those again in order again. Say those 6 again, because those are big.
Yeah. So we, in order of importance as well. So it's mental health, social health, sleep, nutrition, fitness, and ultimately everything leads into habits.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's great. And habits turn into disciplines for us. I mean, that's when it becomes, when, like you said, people don't want it. You give them all these tools, they're still not going to use it. So when they get those habits, and they if they have their mindset that you help them with, then it turns into discipline, or kind of second nature, they call it, right? When you practice martial arts so long, and someone scares you 20 minutes, 20 years later, you're still ready at that Bruce
immediately
Lee.
Go.
Yeah, immediately. And so I guess people with mental health issues is, if you're addressing those, like you said, in that priority, you're giving them the foundation for those habits to really become second nature. And then that's how their success lives. That's the key to the success of it, for the longevity, right?
Exactly. Because when we look at habits, a lot of people they don't have competence in being able to do something unconsciously. So what we want to create is unconscious competence. You do things without thinking, like you're talking about with martial arts. Someone comes at you and you're already wax-oning at them. And so that's exactly what we want to create, the wax-on effect.
That's great, Chandler. So tell me about then the success or your, we talked about, we already checked the adversity box off, man. To be dealing with mom like that really made you who you are at the core. But knowing Dad how you did, what kind of challenge did you have opening the brick and mortar buildings at first, where you were afraid, oh no, Dad's going to say, I told you so? Was it immediately successful, or were there some challenges there too?
Oh yeah, there was challenges there. And I think there's never been a point where there weren't challenges, and anyone who says that they're perfect is probably lying.
You're right. So how did you overcome those challenges, or bend it? What did you have to change? Did you have to change yourself, the process system? And I'm talking about before you went online, before the brick and mortar was good. And then what transition happened where you went, wow, this isn't working either, the process that you were dealing with, which is what everybody works with, the sales process?
Yeah. So when we first opened the brick and mortar, and if you haven't been in a brick and mortar, you have a lot of things to worry about. You have to be the janitor. You have to be the person who takes out the trash. You have to manage employees. You have overhead. Like in an online business, that's sunshine and gumdrops, because there's really no overhead until you get staff and stuff like that. But so in the brick and mortar, I had to learn the first year, my partner and my partner is my significant other, and we haven't killed each other yet. So she's a keeper. And the first year, basically, we would get up at 4:00 in the morning and get to the facility, and we would leave at midnight. And at some point, I just started sleeping in the facility just to get a nap.
Done that. Yep.
And so it was just a miserable disaster the first year. And ultimately after that, I kind of recognized like we had revenue. We just didn't know what to do with it. And we didn't really understand how to create systems and
That's awesome.
profitability and staff. And so after the first year, what I looked at, I started looking at the efficiency of what we were doing. What was the product that was the most efficient, the most profitable? Where were our margins at? Where could I hire and replace myself? And I started opening up Google Docs and writing out everything I was doing. Then I would hire an executive assistant.
So
then I would bring in
systems
coaches.
and then
Exactly.
people. Wow, elementary, but nobody knows it. You don't know what you don't know at that point.
Yeah, you don't know
Because
anything.
you
And
didn't
so
go to business school,
systems
you went to
made it.
medical.
Yeah, exactly. I was a young, dumb science kid who was like, I could do differential equations, but I didn't understand how to balance a checkbook yet.
All
And
right,
I had
or
to figure that
P&Ls.
out.
Yeah. Wow. So then at some point, did you change the sales process to the compassionate conversation before you did the online?
Yes. And so in the beginning of our facility, one of my tenants was to operate a high-end facility. And high-end meant that we were charging like $1,700, $2,500, $3,200 for to work with us in our
Yeah, yeah.
facility. And so to be able to do that, I had to learn how to sell in a different way. And so in the beginning, I was just a young, dumb kid who could speak well. I could always communicate well because of dealing with my mother as a
Yeah.
kid, but I started to learn how to get better at it. And I started to track my sales because of systems and my efficiency and my ratios. And so I started wanting to creep that up. So I began hiring business coaches. And a lot of them were like, you have to assume the buy, like Visa or MasterCard,
Oh
pretend
yeah.
like they want to buy. If they cry, they buy, assume the close. And I was
Right.
just like,
Buyers are liars.
yeah, exactly. If you're not doing objection handling for 90 minutes, you haven't even started. And I was just like, mother
So
of God.
am I selling medical treatments or Corvettes? Right? What
Yeah,
is this?
exactly. What am I, a used car
Or
salesman?
Chevettes, I should
Yeah,
say.
that's right. I'm like, you're going to get a car with, if you buy this, I'll throw in the car, the kitchen sink, I'll throw
Yeah.
in this little hat and 800 of
Jeez.
valued at $8 million. And so I was like, okay, I got into this industry to help people. And now I'm being taught to manipulate people to
Oh
help
yeah.
them. This
That's
is like,
great.
it's a clash.
That's
And it
great.
didn't make
It's
sense
a
to me.
moral and ethical, dichotomy. Yeah.
Exactly. And so at that point, I started looking at my own conversational patterns. I started looking at what I was doing in the sales process, what I was doing to get people to purchase. And then I started looking at the psychologically driven system we built for helping people into the mental health side of things. So I took the idea of cognitive behavior therapy, the idea of motivational interviewing, acceptance commitment therapy, and a bunch of other different modalities in the psychology realm and combined it with what I was already doing. And I had the benefit of having a friend who was a doctor in clinical psychology look at it with me. And
Oh, okay.
I created this system I call compassion conversations out of that. And that's why it's a psychologically driven therapeutic modality of sales, because the goal in it isn't to just find the pain and stab them with the
Yep.
knife and twist the knife. The goal is to be able to connect the dots, find patterns of behavior that have manifested over time, and then help someone understand that those patterns are the problem. It's not what they actually think they're struggling with, because there's the external statement and then there's the internal issue.
Yes. So hold on. I want to bring that up again because that one strikes me because again, I deal with mental health parents or parents with mental health issues, family members. I had two brothers commit suicide. Mom is still around. She's 70 years old. She lives in Alabama and she just bought a scooter. And she's still,
Nice. That's good times.
yeah,
Rolling deep on the scooter.
but she still has her problems, so it's like, oh, geez, we need to get that life insurance policy looked at again, Mom.
Exactly.
So say that part again, because that one, again, these things, you're speaking to me right now. I mean, we could do this without the people, really, sing that one again.
Yeah. So basically, I think the big problem that we see with people is there's an external statement. I want to lose weight or I feel depressed. And then there's an internal issue that's actually happening. And so what we need to do is we need to be able to chip away at that external statement to really understand what the internal issue is. And then we can take the internal issue and understand what happened in the past that created the issue that's allowed it to manifest and
Yeah.
continue moving forward as people become adults and as people move forward. And often in psychology, we call this the core belief. So you identify the core belief, then you identify the triggers that continue to manifest to create problems associated with the core belief. And now you understand the reasons why someone probably can't be successful long-term. And typically it's radically different than what the pain is, or radically different than what they think it is. Because it's all based on patterns and it's all based on behavior and it's all based on something that happened that created issues for someone in their entire lives.
Wow. So I'm watching Sopranos for like the umpteenth time, and it's like what she keeps saying, Dr. Melfi, root cause.
That's it.
And it's how to get there. But it's almost like you mentioned having a coach, and we love coaches. I still have coaches. I always have coaches, but they make me do the work a lot of times. And I look at some of my business coaches like I think they should be football coaches, right? Tell me how many push-ups I should do. Tell me how many laps I should do. Tell me how many, out and ins I should do. When in reality, a lot of them make you come up with the next steps. And so therapy, I think, or mental therapy, psychological therapy, I find, especially like I said, I haven't had a lot of experience with it myself. But again, Sopranos, maybe it's a cliche, but you just kind of see her sitting there, and letting Tony just come to these things himself, because that's what you need to have to really, for it to sink in, it needs to come from within yourself and come out. And so have you figured out how to like lead people without doing the work for them? How does that even happen? And I don't need a long answer. You probably have clinical answers, but how did you get to there?
Yeah, I call this the model of the empathetic listener, or the model of the cognitive listener. And when you understand that there's 5 levels of listening, most people are just like ignore listening, or they're like, they have their phone and they're not paying attention, but pretending like they are. That's called pretend listening. And then there's listening, but the only reason you're listening is to be able to respond. So some people are like, I'm kind of listening, but all I want to do is put my piece in there.
Yeah.
And so what we want to, that's
listening?
like passive listening. And so what we want to do is move into empathetic listening, which is where I remove my non-ability to be influenced and allow myself to be influenced by the person, so I can ask questions to step inside their mind and their heart and soul to help them come to their truth. Because if I tell you something, you'll doubt it. But if you tell yourself something, you'll believe it. And that's ultimately what I need to create. And the way we do this is asking questions. And we have to stroke their ego and validate what they're saying to make sure they understand it's important, so they feel okay.
If someone doesn't and value,
exactly. If someone doesn't feel okay, they're not going to tell you anything.
Right.
Then we need to reverse with questions. So then it's, hey, I can totally understand how you don't feel yourself. So just tell me a little bit more about what you mean by that. I don't have to say a lot. I can say 2 words in the entire conversation.
Like Chris Voss, right? Like, whatever the last 3 words that they said, like kind of both an up inflection, right? To make it a question, whenever the last thing they said, you just kind of repeat the last 3 things, and that gets them continuing on the path, and maybe even turn the path and keep going. And I love that model. It's more of a negotiation tactic, but it probably applies to what you do too.
Yeah, exactly. And so all you need to do is be able to ask questions based off what people say, and then continue to drive deeper into it till we understand what the framework is of the core belief. Then once we understand the core belief, we work to understand where it came from and how it manifested from the past and from life experiences. Then once we understand that, we can connect the dots. And the process I call connecting the dots is taking all of that and putting it together to help the person understand where they are. And so it's taking a blank slate and painting a canvas for them.
Love it. So I think we talked about 3 listening. There's a pretend listening, passive listening, and then where you're really listening, I call that active listening. And that's, I guess, where you're like responding with the questions. So you're kind of engaging. Are there 2 other levels?
Yeah, so we have the pretend listening, we have the sort of passive listening where you're on your phone. You have the kind of listening is what I call it, where you're only listening to respond. Then you have active listening where you're actually listening and probably asking questions. And then we have level 5, which is empathetic listening. And so that's where if someone, and here's a really fun example. So if someone says like, I hate Trump, and in your bias, and this isn't my bias or anything, but if I said, you suck, I hate you because you said that, that's maybe active listening, but it's not really empathetic listening. Empathetic listening is, oh, well, tell me, I can get that. Right. Tell me a little bit about why you hate Trump.
What part? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I got it. I love it. I like that. Empathetic, that's another level. Empathetic as another level of active listening. Wow. So you're listening without your bias.
Exactly. You remove your bias from the equation to allow yourself to be influenced so you can influence. If you block yourself, you have no business influencing other people.
I want to, when we started this, we said 20 minutes. I could go so much longer, and I want to, but I think it'd be more appropriate. I have another show called The Risk Factor, where we have mental, physical, and emotional health issues. Everyone has those, but how do they impact the business, the leader, and the employee? I think on that show, we could really do some unpacking on that. So I want to save some of this for that. But This is because this stuff is so intriguing to me in my life. So thank you for that. Let's get to kind of how you transitioned and saw the brilliance. The timing was incredible for opening up an online business. And how do you do this online? And you do it right a year before COVID hit so that you could actually maybe even thrive, because people really needed some mental health issues and support through that downtime, through the C word. I even said I'm not supposed to say that word anymore. Broke my own rule. But how did you have that thought, and was it your partner? Where'd you come up with this?
Yeah, so it's funny. I got deep into microbiology when I was studying for biochem to move into the med school path. And in 2010, I made a post that a superbug was going to come out and like wipe people out. And I thought it was going to be like antibiotic resistance. And a lot of my farmer friends were like, "You're an idiot." And now I look back and I'm like, well, it was actually pretty accurate. And so my next book is going to be called How I Predicted the COVID Pandemic. Just kidding, but I should write one like that. But what happened was I was uniquely aware that, an online environment was going to be important. And I figured that we needed to have a presence there to be able to have multiple streams of income and multiple product zones to be able to essentially globalize our local brand. And so in that time, what I did was I started to slowly and incrementally ramp up our ability to provide an online solution. And so in 2014, we had like templates we used. 2016, we had an app we started using. 2018, and just before COVID hit, we had the full blown thing ready to go and delivered online. So I had a full 12-week curriculum surrounding mental health, surrounding social health, surrounding sleep. I had the ability to track and identify people's patterns. We had the ability to have a message center to check in on people every day. And so then as soon as COVID hit, and literally everything got shut down, we were producing enough revenue on that side to never have to open up our brick and mortar again.
Wow.
I mean, I think we grew 1,800% during the pandemic because, like you said, everybody was struggling and nobody had a solution.
Yes.
And we were the only ones who were prepared to offer it. Most people were scrambling. Like, what do we do now? Oh, do an online program. How? I don't know.
Right. They don't know how to use the programs. They don't know how to use the platform. They don't have the equipment. They don't have the videos. They're not understanding that. How do you get to the privacy and the forms? And boy, you had all that stuff already done.
Exactly. We were like ninja level and everyone else was like toddler level. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. We were prepared. I mean, COVID sucks and all that, but it was neat that we were prepared for this thing.
It was. Yeah. And that's foresight. Like I said in the opening, somehow you had it. And man, it was fortunate. It's because you're putting yourself in the right place for the right things to happen. It sounds like. I mean, for us, we don't say TGIF. We say TGIS, and that's the grind includes Saturday and Sunday. And, all this stuff when you own your own business, it's not a 9 to 5, it's a 5 to 9. All the daily Noodleberg, sayings is where we live, to create this business of ours. And when you're in it for other people, really, and you're doing this grind and it's outwardly that you're here to serve, and that's a real good success recipe.
Yeah,
it sounds like you guys are doing excellent. You're serving the questions that you asked, going from a sales pitch to a, what is it called again? Compassionate conversation. Right?
Exactly.
That's
Compassion
genius.
Conversations.
So let's close on that. Tell us about just a little bit more about what that looks like. And is that where you kind of really focus on the fourth and fifth type of listening, and that becomes, instead of an interview and on an intake, it's more of a conversation? How do you even know, though, where to go, which avenues to go down? Is that because of the training of the staff that you hire?
Yeah. So basically in Compassion Conversations, we have 3 tenets. Tenet 1 is something you just talked about, detaching from the need to sell and making sure you consistently install the need to serve. Yeah. Step 2 is becoming an empathetic listener, or what we call a cognitive questioner. And step 3 is adapting the model of the challenging leader, so we can understand that we can create leadership in people and help them understand we're someone worth following. And so to create this, we have a full 9-week academy now that people go through. They have to go through step 1 and they have to send us videos. We green light them, or we give them homework to work on, so they go back and fix it. Then once they get green lighted, they move to step 2 and they get green lighted along the way. And the reason I built this was for my staff originally, so that they actually mastered along the way. And now we have people who go through the program. And the thing that was important to me was that we didn't just have something people went through and they were like, oh, look, I went through this course. It was, I'm going to make sure I hammer this into you. So when you finish it, you are ninja level at this stuff. Yeah. And I can say that you're certified and you're good to go. And I can feel comfortable and happy that people are actually becoming successful with what we produce.
Yes. Man, that's great stuff, Chandler. I really applaud you and your team and all your efforts over the years to get to where you are. What is next on the horizon for you? Because you've got this gift of knowing, what to do with innovation, and it's just such a big need in the country. What do you think is next for you guys over there?
Yeah, basically at this point, we have the Brain Code Rewire health program and compassion conversations that we're really focused on building and growing. And I take the profits and invest into the market. And I mean, I originally invested in Ethereum at $15 a coin, and now it's
Yes.
20,000% up. I did the same with 7 other coins. So we've been fairly successful in the
Bam.
blockchain realm as
Yeah.
well. So now
Yeah.
our profits are being multiplied and we're winning over there.
Yeah, so and I won't even go into what's next on there because I just got into it, but it's going up. I'm seeing good stuff. Offline, maybe we could talk about that.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
so new into that. So how do people get in touch with you? And who are you looking for exactly where I can send them your way? Because, we're talking to so many people these days. We're doing 2 or 3 of these shows a day, and especially with the risk factor. Who am I listening to? How could I be a good referral partner for you? And how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with me, you can go to Instagram.com/Chandler_SAF to follow me there. Shoot me a DM. I'm a fun guy. You'll see me with me and my daughter. I have a beard and a top knot. If you want to get the free 9-step framework to creating compassion conversations, essentially our entire script is given to you. Just go to 9step.cultureofcare.life. You'll fill out your info and it'll redirect you to my Facebook group where I do free live trainings at least once a week. And then if you want to keep following me, just join the Facebook group and you'll get all the info you need from there.
You said it's 9step.cultureoflife.com?
9step.cultureofcare.life.
Cultureofcare.life. Okay, great. Well, we want definitely people to check that out. Otherwise, DM me, message us on this video. We will get those to Chandler. We're gonna put you out there, put you up there, and we'll see what happens. But always, good thing happens to good people in the position when they're just pushing towards helping others as much as we can. It sounds like that's exactly what you guys are doing there.
Yeah, that's it. We're trying to create a culture of care in 2 realms and help people move past the idea of aggressive sales and move into the idea that we can create a culture of care in our sales processes and with our sales teams.
That's right. You do have an alternative and you have choice. So thank you very much, man. We'll talk to you in a bit. I definitely want to get you on the risk factor, but stand by for 1 second. Let me just say goodbye to everyone sitting right now, wherever you are listening to this program. I can't thank you enough. As I've been saying quite recently, we were just monetized, so that means that we're going to have some ads on this show. Please listen to them, support them, because that allows us to get in front of the most people possible where we can actually do the most good. It's because of your support that we're here today, and we want to continue being there for you and bringing the people like Chandler who can do the most good for the people in our lives. So stay here, stay supportive, stay engaged, and most importantly, continue to go pro.